Once branded the other woman despised by an entire nation, Camilla still rose to become queen. But a single trooping the color ceremony made her realize her title is more fragile than ever. Catherine is celebrated seated in the glass state coach standing beside the king, and Camilla pushed to the sidelines. But the royal court is no place for the weak. Will Camilla quietly accept her fate, or will she from the shadows step into the light once more? Buckingham Palace glowed with the radiance of crystal chandeliers, but the air inside was heavy as if a storm were brewing. Marble corridors echoed with the hurried footsteps of palace staff, all consumed with preparations for trooping the color, the official celebration of the king's birthday. Red carpets were unfurled, velvet drapes neatly drawn, and glittering military uniforms meticulously inspected. Yet within Camilla the Queen, a flicker of unease smoldered like a small flame fanned by an unseen wind. She stood before a grand mirror in her private chambers, her hands delicately adjusting a wide-brimmed emerald green hat, a color chosen to highlight her regal dignity without ostentation. Her gaze traced the faint lines on her face etched by time and years of struggle for acceptance. Camilla was never one to be easily shaken, but today something in the atmosphere quickened her pulse. "We must ensure everything is flawless," she said, her voice low and composed, addressing Clara, her loyal aide of over 2 decades. Clara, with silver hair neatly tied back and sharp eyes, nodded her pen, scribbling swiftly in a leather-bound notebook. "Especially the balcony. The public will scrutinize every detail." Clara offered a faint smile, but Camilla caught a flicker of hesitation in her eyes. "Of course, Your Majesty. Everything is arranged. The king reviewed the balcony order this morning." Camilla froze her fingers on the hat, trembling slightly. This morning her tone remained steady, but a wave of unease surged within her. Charles, her husband, rarely altered plans without consulting her, especially for events as significant as this. "And what is that order?" Clara hesitated, her lips pressing together as if weighing each word. I'm not certain of the details, ma'am, but I heard the Princess of Wales will have a special position." A special position. The words reverberated in Camilla's mind like a tolling bell, ominous and foreboding. She turned, moving slowly to the window, where morning light filtered through heavy drapes. Outside, guards rehearsed their brass instruments, sounding in rhythmic cadence. But Camilla's thoughts were elsewhere, lost in a dark corner, where the first seeds of doubt took root. That afternoon, she wandered through the grand corridor, where Charles's advisors often convened. She hadn't intended to eavesdrop, at least that's what she told herself. But as she passed the council room, the oaken door slightly ajar let slip low, tense voices. "Catherine is the perfect choice," a familiar voice declared, Sir Edward Charles's closest advisor. "She's adored by the public, and her image will strengthen the monarchy's standing at this moment." "We must tread carefully," another voice interjected, likely Sir Michael, ever cautious. "The Queen won't be pleased if she feels sidelined." Camilla stopped dead, her breath catching in her chest. She pressed herself against the cold wall, her heart pounding. They were talking about her, the woman who had spent a lifetime carving out her place in the royal family, enduring public scorn, tabloid venom, and the late Queen Elizabeth's icy distance. She'll understand. Charles's voice cut through, deep and authoritative, tinged with weariness. "Camilla knows the monarchy's future depends on preparing the next generation. Catherine isn't just a symbol, she's a bridge." A bridge! The word pierced Camilla's heart like a dagger. She clenched her fist nails, digging into her palms. Charles hadn't said it outright, but the implication was clear. The monarchy's future no longer revolved around her. Not the woman who had sacrificed everything to stand by his side, but Catherine, the young beloved princess, seemingly born to shine. Unable to bear more, Camilla turned and strode away, her heels clicking sharply on the marble floor. No matter how she tried, she couldn't shake the wave of hurt spreading through her chest. It wasn't just the pain of a wife, it was the agony of someone who thought she had triumphed only to find the spotlight slipping away. Back in her chambers, she slammed the door, her breath ragged. Clara, arranging schedules, looked up, startled. "Ma'am, is something wrong?" Camilla didn't answer immediately. She walked to the vanity, removed her emerald hat, and set it down with deliberate care, as if restraining a tempest within. "Clara," she finally said, her voice a near whisper, Find out exactly what Catherine's special position is. I want to know everything. Clara nodded, her eyes filled with concern, but silent. As Camilla turned back to the mirror, she saw only a woman with doubt in her eyes and a small flame born of pain and anger quietly igniting. Night fell over Buckingham Palace, but sleep eluded Camilla. She sat by her chamber's window, a glass of red wine in hand, her gaze lost in the darkened gardens below. The faint moonlight illuminated rows of roses, flowers she once cherished, now mere reminders of old wounds. The steady tick of a pendulum clock in the corner counted down time, pulling her back to days she thought she'd locked away. Charles's words from the meeting haunted her. Catherine is a bridge. They weren't just a royal strategy. They were a blade reopening the scars of years when the world turned its back on her. She sipped her wine, its bitterness spreading across her tongue, but it paled compared to the memories flooding in. 30 years ago, Camilla wasn't a queen. She was Camilla Parker Bowles, vilified by the press, with vicious labels, the other woman, the mistress in the shadows. Tabloids screamed with red headlines, distorted paparazzi photos, and scathing editorials that cast her as the nation's villain. Each morning, opening the door of her Wiltshire home, she faced neighbors' curious stares, whispered gossip, and sometimes anonymous letters brimming with curses. But the deepest pain came from the royal family itself. Queen Elizabeth, with eyes sharp as steel and a smile rarely offered, never truly accepted her. During rare tea gatherings at the palace, Camilla felt an invisible wall between her and her mother-in-law. "We must protect the monarchy's image," Elizabeth once said, her voice soft but frigid. Camilla understood she wasn't part of that image. Not like the radiant Diana, the young woman adored by the masses. She was a mistake to be concealed. To be with Charles, Camilla had sacrificed so much. Lonely evenings in a cold house, waiting for his call while her children slept. Years enduring judgmental glares from family, friends, and even herself. She'd stared into mirrors, questioning her worth, wondering if she was merely a shadow in Charles's life. Yet she persisted, not for glory, but for a love she believed was fated. And after all the storms, she thought she'd won. The day she walked into St. George's Chapel in a simple wedding gown, Charles's eyes were filled with love. The day she wore the crown, standing beside him on Buckingham Palace's balcony, the crowd's applause seemed to erase years of suffering. Camilla believed she finally belonged, that she was accepted. But now in the quiet of her room, she realized that glory was an illusion. The royal family was never truly her home. And Catherine, the young woman with a perfect smile, glossy hair, and effortless public adoration, was slowly claiming the place Camilla had paid a lifetime to secure. She set down her wine and rose, walking to an old bookshelf in the corner. Her fingers brushed over leather-bound volumes, pausing at a faded photo album. She opened it, and worn pictures unfolded like fragments of a life. One showed her and Charles at a Highgrove hunt, both laughing, oblivious to the world. Another captured her on her wedding day, her eyes sparkling with joy and apprehension, and tucked between the pages a clipping. "Camilla, the woman who can never be Diana." She gave a bitter smile. Diana. The name still haunted her, even as queen. But now it wasn't Diana, it was Catherine, a new icon loved, without struggle, without sacrifice. Catherine seemed born for the spotlight, applauded without a blemish. Every smile she gave, every wave to the crowd, reminded Camilla that she had never truly belonged. She snapped the album shut, the sound sharp in the silent room. Returning to the window, her gaze was no longer lost, but burned with a smoldering fire. Envy, a feeling she'd buried deep, stirred like a beast awakened. Not because she craved Catherine's spotlight, but because she couldn't bear the thought that all her sacrifices, all her scars were being forgotten. Morning light seeped through heavy velvet drapes in Camilla's chambers, but it couldn't dispel the darkness clinging to her mind. On the mahogany desk, a leather-bound dossier lay, delivered by Clara at dawn, its gold-embossed title gleaming, "Trooping the Color-Detailed Plan." Camilla had asked for it, not out of specific suspicion, but driven by a vague instinct, as if she needed to grasp a truth being hidden. She sat opening the dossier, her fingers gliding over thick pages written in the elegant script of palace secretaries. Guest lists, parade schedules, guard formations, all familiar, almost mundane. But her eyes halted on a page near the end, detailing the carriage procession and balcony positions. Her heart skipped a beat. The Princess of Wales and her children will ride in the glass state coach. The words danced before her sharp and cold. The glass state coach, a resplendent symbol of ultimate royal privilege, which even Camilla as a new queen had used only once. Now it was reserved for Catherine and her children, youthful and radiant, adored by the public. Camilla flipped to the next page, her breath quickening. Balcony positions. The king at center, the Princess of Wales to his right, the queen to his left. She read it again as if to confirm she hadn't misread. To Charles's right, the place of honor where millions of eyes would focus. It had been her place the queen's earned through a lifetime of struggle. But now Catherine would take it. She slammed the dossier shut, the sound echoing in the quiet room. Clara, standing near the door, flinched but stayed silent. Clara Camilla called, her voice low and sharp as a blade, who approved this plan. Clara hesitated, clutching her leather notebook tightly. Ma'am, I believe Sir Edward and the advisors presented it to His Majesty. I was only tasked with delivering it. Camilla rose, moving slowly to the window, where the faint sound of practicing guards' music drifted from the palace courtyard. And no one thought to consult me. She turned, her gaze icy. Not a word. Clara bowed her head, her voice barely a whisper. I'm sorry, ma'am. I thought perhaps they assumed you'd been informed. Camilla said nothing. She knew Clara wasn't to blame, but the silence of Clara, the advisors, and above all, Charles, cut like another knife. She felt like an outsider, excluded from her own family. That afternoon, she resolved to confront the advisors. She entered the council room where Sir Edward and Sir Michael were discussing at a long table draped in red silk. Both stood abruptly upon seeing her, but Camilla caught a flash of panic in their eyes. Your Majesty, Sir Edward began, his voice smooth but betraying tension. We didn't expect you. Is there something to discuss? Camilla smiled, a cold smile honed over years of facing those who hid the truth. I simply wish to understand the color plans better, particularly the glass state coach and the balcony positions. Silence blanketed the room, broken only by the ticking of a wall clock. Sir Michael coughed, avoiding her gaze. Ma'am, it was a decision based on overall considerations. The Princess of Wales represents the new generation, and the public adores her. And I don't, Camilla interrupted, her voice calm, but cutting. Or do you believe the Queen no longer has the strength to stand beside the King? Sir Edward rushed in, raising a hand as if to soothe. No, ma'am, absolutely not. We only aim to ensure the monarchy's image is strengthened in the public's eyes. Catherine, she's part of the future. The future. The word struck again, a venomous refrain. Camilla clenched her fists, nails biting into her palms. And that future doesn't include me, does it? Without waiting for a reply, she turned and left, leaving the advisors pale-faced. The night before trooping the color, Buckingham Palace was cloaked in an ominous stillness. The long corridors, usually aglow with light and laughter, now carried only the chill of wind slipping through ancient windows. In Charles's private study, firelight flickered, casting shadows on portraits of past monarchs, as if they watched a silent battle about to unfold. Camilla stood at the door, her hand on the cold brass knob, drawing a deep breath. After discovering the ceremony plans, the glass state coach, the balcony position beside Charles, she could no longer pretend all was well. This conversation, however painful, was inevitable. She pushed the door open, her gaze resolute, but her heart heavy. Charles sat at an oak desk, a glass of whiskey in hand, his tired eyes fixed on the fire. He looked up as Camilla entered, a weary smile crossing his face. Camilla, you're still awake. Tomorrow will be a long day. She didn't return the smile. Instead, she stepped closer, her heels tapping softly on the wooden floor, each step a declaration of intent. Charles, her voice was low but sharp. We need to talk. Now. Charles frowned, setting his glass down, his posture stiffening. What's wrong? You look, unsettled. Camilla stood tall, hands clasped tightly before her, as if restraining a storm within. Unsettled. How could I not be when I find out I've been pushed out of my own family? The glass state coach, the balcony position, all arranged for Catherine and you, didn't say a word to me. Charles set his glass down, his movements deliberate, buying time. He met her eyes that had once offered her solace in the darkest times now distant. Camilla, you know I value you, but we're at a sensitive moment. The monarchy needs renewal. Camilla let out a dry, bitter laugh, the sound stark in the quiet room. Renewal or replacement? Do you think I don't see it? Catherine in the glass state coach. Catherine to your right on the balcony. Catherine as the bridge to the future. And me, Charles. What am I in your plans? Charles rose, stepping toward her, but Camilla raised a hand to stop him. Don't, she said, her voice trembling but firm. Don't try to placate me with gestures. I've endured enough whispers behind my back, enough pitying looks from palace staff. They see me as a relic, something to be stored away to make room for Catherine. Camilla, you're exaggerating, Charles snapped, his voice rising with frustration. Catherine isn't replacing you. She's the next generation, the one who'll carry on after us. The public loves her, and we need that to protect the monarchy. You of all people know the cost of losing their support. She turned away, her gaze fixed on the window where darkness enveloped the royal gardens. So you admit it, she whispered, her voice breaking. You need Catherine to save the monarchy's image, and me, the one who stood by you through every scandal, every criticism, who sacrificed her honor to love you. I'm just expendable, aren't I? Charles shook his head, crossing to place a hand on her shoulder. This time she didn't pull away. Camilla, no. You're the queen, the one I chose, the one I love. But I have a duty to this crown. Catherine, she brings hope, freshness. That doesn't mean I undervalue you. His words, though gentle, stung like salt in a wound. Camilla's chest tightened, a pain she couldn't articulate. She'd always told herself she was strong, that she could endure anything, but now facing the man she'd devoted her life to, she felt small, fragile. A tear rolled down her cheek, and she didn't wipe it away. You don't understand, Charles, she said, her voice choked, revealing vulnerability for the first time. I fought to earn this place, to stand by you without the world's contempt. But now I feel like everything I've done is meaningless. You and your advisors are pushing me out of the center, and you don't even see how it's killing me. Charles fell silent, his hand tightening on her shoulder, but no words came. In that moment, they both felt an invisible crack, not between king and queen, but between two people who once believed their love could conquer all. Camilla turned back, brushing away her tears, struggling to reclaim her pride. Tomorrow on the balcony, I'll stand there smiling, as the public expects. But know this, I'm not doing it for the monarchy or for Catherine. I'm doing it for you, Charles. And I hope you won't make me regret it. She left the room, her heels clicking steadily on the marble floor, leaving Charles alone in the dim light. Outside, a cold wind swept across Buckingham's balcony, as if foretelling a ceremony that would be more than pomp, a prelude to fractures beyond repair. The day of Trooping the Color was a masterpiece, with London skies, a rare, vivid blue and golden sunlight bathing the streets. Buckingham Palace thrummed with the sounds of brass trumpets, clattering hooves, and relentless applause from the crowds outside. Royal banners fluttered atop the domes, and the festive air brimmed with national pride. But for Camilla, standing in her dressing room in a cream silk gown and delicate wide-brimmed hat, this was no celebration. It was a stage where she must wear a mask to hide a bleeding heart. The previous night's heated exchange with Charles had robbed her of sleep. His words about duty, Catherine, the future, echoed in her mind, an unrelenting melody. She looked in the mirror, adjusting a pearl pin on her hat, and told herself, "Smile, Camilla. The public doesn't need to know your heart is breaking." But in her own eyes, she saw a woman teetering on the edge of collapse. The parade began, and Camilla sat in a royal carriage beside Charles. He held her hand, but the grip lacked the warmth she once knew. The crowd waved flags, chanting the king's name, but Camilla sensed their eyes passing over her, searching for another face, Catherine's. Then the glass state coach appeared, gleaming under the sun like a giant jewel. Inside, Catherine sat poised, her emerald gown accentuating her flawless elegance. Beside her were her three children, angelic faces beaming as they waved to the crowd. The cheers erupted louder than anything Camilla had ever heard. Television cameras zeroed in on the coach, and along the route, giant screens magnified Catherine's image, as if she were the center of the universe. Camilla clenched her hands and nails, digging into her silk gloves. She forced a smile, but inside a storm raged. Catherine wasn't just a princess, She was the new icon, the dream the public craved. And Camilla, though queen, was a faint shadow on the edge of that glory. On Buckingham Palace's balcony, the moment Camilla dreaded arrived. Charles stood at the center, his scarlet uniform gleaming. Catherine, radiant in an ornate hat, stepped to his right, her smile lighting up the sky. Camilla, directed to stand on his left, took a step back, a small physical move, but a chasm in her heart. Charles took Catherine's hand, raising it to greet the crowd. The cheers roared again, drowning out the music. "Catherine, Catherine!" The crowd shouted, phones raised to capture every moment. Camilla stood there, her smile rigid, her eyes lost like someone abandoned in a whirlwind of indifference. She glanced at Charles, hoping for a shred of reassurance, but he focused only on the crowd, on Catherine, on the image his advisors had crafted. A sharp pain stabbed her chest, not from envy, but from the brutal truth she had become invisible even to the man she loved most. In the days following Trooping the Color, Buckingham Palace resumed its routine, but the air in Camilla's heart remained heavy like storm clouds yet to clear. She sat alone in the library, a rare sanctuary amid the palace's cold walls. On the oak table, a stack of newspapers and magazines, neatly arranged by Clara, shimmered with images of the parade. Camilla's hand hovered over them, pausing at a bold headline: "Catherine, the monarchy's radiant future." She opened the paper, her eyes slowly tracing the photos. Catherine in the glass state coach, her smile bright as sunlight. Catherine on the balcony beside Charles, her gown fluttering in the breeze. And somewhere in the corner of the frame was Camilla. Her smile strained her gaze, distant, a forgotten shadow. She sighed, not out of jealousy, but from a deep sadness, as if she were seeing her own life through alien words and images. She picked up another photo, a rare shot of herself alone at the ceremony. She stood, solitary hands clasped tightly, eyes fixed on the crowd but seeing nothing. The image stirred memories of years under tabloid scrutiny, when every step was judged, every smile questioned. She'd thought the crown would heal, all erase old scars. But now she saw that the spotlight was never truly hers, a borrowed thing easily lost when a new star rose. Meanwhile, at Clarence's house, Catherine sat in her private room, a cold teacup on the table. Her eyes scanned similar articles, but not with joy or pride. Contrary to the perfect image the public saw, Catherine felt an invisible weight on her shoulders. Every headline praising her, every compliment from the press, was a chain binding her to the role of royal icon. She knew the cost of fame, sleepless nights worrying over every word, every gesture, moments of smiling through a heavy heart, and above all, the pressure to be flawless, with no room for error. Catherine thought of Camilla, a woman she respected but seldom understood. She knew what Camilla had endured. Years of public disdain branded the other woman. Catherine wasn't naive. She saw that her own radiance today was in part casting Camilla into shadow. But she didn't know how to change it. She could only keep moving forward, carrying the burden of expectations the public placed on her. A month after Trooping the Color, Buckingham Palace seemed to regain its outward calm. The marble corridors no longer echoed with rushed footsteps, and the velvet drapes were drawn back, hiding the ceremony's brilliance. But in Camilla's heart, the echoes of emotional turmoil lingered. She had learned to live with them as she had with the scars of her past. Today, Camilla attended a modest event at Kew Gardens, the opening of a new rose exhibit. No lavish carriages, no dazzling balcony, just vibrant flower beds and a handful of reporters. She wore a simple beige dress in a light, wide-brimmed hat, her smile no longer forced but touched with newfound serenity. The public greeted her with polite bows and gentle applause, but Camilla no longer sought the spotlight. She was there for herself, for the small but meaningful moments. As she cut the ribbon, Camilla glanced at the crowd and caught a few warm gazes. There were no frenzied cheers like those for Catherine, but she no longer felt pain. She had let go of the need to be the center of attention. Instead, she found joy in the sincerity around her, the gardeners sharing stories of each rose, the shy children offering her a bouquet. For the first time in weeks, Camilla felt she belonged somewhere, not as a queen, but as a woman with a seasoned heart. At the same time, at a charity event in central London, Catherine stood before a crowd, her elegant gown and radiant smile as ever. But when a reporter asked about her role in the monarchy, Catherine surprised them by mentioning Camilla. "I've always admired the Queen," she said, her voice sincere through the microphone. She's a strong woman who's overcome immense challenges to stand where she is. From her, I've learned that patience and dedication are what truly matter. Catherine's words spread quickly across the press. Catherine honors Queen Camilla. One headline read, Royal Unity, another proclaimed. The public saw a beautiful picture, two women, two generations, strengthening the monarchy together. But only Camilla and Catherine knew what they'd been through, the doubts, the hurts, and the moments they faced the spotlight alone. When Camilla read the article about Catherine's speech, she smiled faintly, not for the recognition, but because she understood that Catherine, despite her youth and brilliance, carried her own burdens. Those words didn't erase Camilla's scars, but they built a small bridge between two women once divided by rivalry. Buckingham Palace stood silent in the night, an eternal symbol of power and tradition. But within its walls, silent battles of envy, pain, and reconciliation continued, never truly ending. And Camilla, with her seasoned heart, had learned to walk through those storms no longer afraid.